The Commandant moved at once to the locale, while his men brought massacre and captivity to the remnants of Aeroshield's army. Now upon the distant ridge, he surveyed a moment, feeling faint traces of energy from the observers. He looked down, noting the tracks and more obvious markers of stumbling in their haste to flee. They are in panic now. The Commandant lifted his gaze. Moments passed as he imagined their apprehending, and through one great caliber of intention, began his pursuit.
Best move faster if you want to keep your heads,
Grax exclaimed.
I'm moving as fast as the sand will allow.
Inhosa said.
Faster! The Commandant approaches!
Grax said, leading the way. But this was a great feeling, and with such sensation held heavy, Gulu breathed. She inhaled as they ran, exhaled just as calm. Gulu tried to settle her rising angst, but this she could not do, for the Commandant was nearing closer, and the horror kept rising from deep within. She could not settle such stormy waters this time, and she choked upon her fear as it became manifest, living in the space around her. She heard the piercing of stave through fabric and flesh, and a cry aloud as Inhosa fell to his knees, the Commandant removing his staff once stuck deep inside, and a well of blood flowed from Inhosa's chest, staining both cloth of nobility and the sands at his feet.
Your days are numbered, witch.
The Commandant breathed. Gulu screamed as she turned, but Inhosa had a look that demanded a quiet about her, and quickly she silenced her trembling lips as she fell to the sands, shaking and in disarray. Grax stopped and turned around as Inhosa walked up to her.
He will catch us,
she said.
You die, but somehow you will yet live,
Gulu remarked. She turned from his expression to face the distant sands, held to darkness and dull glows from the moon.
I am never wrong in my visions,
Gulu cried. Hush now, my dear, Inhosa said, reaching in to console her. It's the stress of our situation, the loss we've endured, the pressing moments of now.
You died,
she whispered. With your ability and the unsettling before us, it was a trick of the mind. Grax cleared its throat.
Can we get moving and finish this business at my home, or do we want to ensure all our deaths?
Grax whispered. They looked up at him. Tenhut felt he was nearing ever closer to the traitorous conspirators as a new thought entered from outside his mind, with the same presence and guidance that led him to such great feats already.
Move to Ilkapal.
The foreign traitors go now.
Advance to the woods.
Like many blanket statements, Tenhut would have no choice but to follow to have the guided yammering cease. But such he was glad to do, as he knew more by the day his private protocols were nothing shy of the unveiling of some greater universal guidance. He moved through the dunes, unmolested by terrain, for he was one with the sands. He breathed as he envisioned the rightly end to such meager disruptors and their cruel bargain. They continued running through their established route in silence, save for heavy breaths and the compression of sand beneath their feet as they moved between waving and declining, rising and falling dunes. Closer now to the city, they prayed they would return home absent discovery as they reached the start of a great thicket of bushes and forestry that surrounded the far end of Egyptia. They ran through the miles, clinging to the one hope they would not be discovered. Tenhut was powerful, and this night he should not have been there. He was sent to the north alongside Scarge and his army. He witnessed the departure, for the golden search for this lost wizard was all that consumed them, or so he thought. And it was only this Inhosa considered. Such loss of friends, such loss of support. The movement had truly ended, and it was all his fault. Inhosa bellowed in the quiet. They shyly looked, but kept running through the start of the woods, closer to their hidden entrance into the city. They slowed to a walk and began to softly converse.
I can't believe this,
Gulu said.
I thought for sure.
It is still too early for us to discern any proper thought. Let us return home. Then we can reconcile with our efforts and determine our next move, Grax said. She looked at Inhosa, who nodded. So the talk ended as quickly as it began, and it was only moments until Gulu looked first, over to the brush ahead, and it was upon the faint utterance from her lips, was it no sooner than they all felt it. Tenhut circled around, coming to path adjacent the city, yet held in thick forestry and illuminated beacons by black art sciences. He was machine-minded in pursuit of his tasks. His faith in the dynasty never wavered, never weakened, but his mind slipped into thoughts of more pleasant things. A life he could never have, only admire. But it was only a moment. He corrected his mindset and continued up the path, proud, and the aura of many gods upon him. They froze, but Gulu held steady, a rested spirit about her. She let the great muse take hold of her. When Tenhut saw the woman, she slowed to a stop, and Tenhut was forced to do the same. They were a shy distance away, 20 feet or more, as they met upon the steadying of a winding curve. Grax and Inhosa looked at her wide-eyed but silent, Tenhut looking only on Gulu. Upon this scenario, Gulu was concealing them, yet unable to cast herself to shadow so quickly. Tenhut walked forward.
Who are you?
Just a traveler in the night, Lord Commander.
Tell me, Egyptian, what are you doing outside the city?
I like to be beyond the city for a time. Endless landscape, it is tranquil.
Tenhut didn't look convinced, held by way of demeanor.
Such is why we built the transition district, a safe province for such purposes.
Tenhut brought his fists to his hips and leaned in. She could feel the humidity of his respiration and deep vibrations of his vocal arrangements. With an arch of his head,
I do not take kindly to lies,
he said.
No, but for a time, I like to get out, away from everything, everyone.
She said. Grax and Inhosa held perfectly still, breathing barely a flutter. No wisecracks or comments delivered, just stillness and trembling as Tenhut's distorted voice echoed deep, vibrating their bones and the tissues around. Tenhut looked around, as if reaching out with his senses, before looking back on the woman.
There has been an attack. Have you seen anyone pass through?
I heard carnage. I trust you brought them all to heal. I've seen no one, but a pleasant surprise this is.
When did you hear such? Why did you not remain in the city?
It was after I left, of course. I've been out here prior sunset. I've spent most of my day in these woods. It was as I was returning. I thought it best to wait and hide, for a time.
Surely, you must be returning home.
I am making my way as we speak.
Why are you walking opposite the main city gates?
He said. She looked at him as he returned in kind such gaze.
You will come with me as we determine your whole story.
Commandant, please, if I may, I haven't much time, but she will find you.
The Commandant was nearly to protest, but suddenly his mind went blank.
What do you speak of?
She was on your mind moments ago. She will appear to you soon. But I sense you will not confide in her until after this war the Pharaoh has set you upon.
Gulu smiled.
Good night, Lord Commander,
She said, walking away but without any notice to the Commandant, who stood transfixed on the space ahead. It was like the barrier of all dreams separated by time and circumstance faded, and he stood carried by one serene landscape and envisioning miles and countless miles of unending imaginings. But through great clicks of respiration, his ventilation rasped, marking the artificial life he endured, and with great clarity remembered his oath, the Pharaoh's endgame.
Sorceress.
He grumbled, looking behind him, but she was gone. He moved quickly, backtracking the space from which he came, but far to the path ahead and off the vines to the sides, there was no mark of movement. Tenhut reached forth with his awareness in the stillness. No sense of bodies, no conscious geometries lit the path ahead or the reaches that surround. He let the visors fall over his eyes, retracting and revoking all green luminance to the scene as Tenhut turned around breathing in his contemplation. His blind spots in perception had cost him the message. This magic, this guidance had again handed him for what he was searching, the conspirators once before him. But his momentary ill-commitment denied his ability to reach and seize them.
Run then, but very soon I will find you,
Tenhut said. Their time will come, but her words rang true. He felt he would discover equal glory in one who was not the pharaoh. He looked the direction of the city gates.
Your days are numbered, witch,
The Commandant breathed, glancing down at the path ahead, and straightening his focus, began his march to the pharaoh's palace.